Why hello there, and welcome to this exquisite new Doctor Who tier list video today. For the uninitiated, new to this series, I have been on a Doctor Who binge, marathoning all of the show's long 60 plus year history since about the summer of last year, so about 15-16 months now. I have been marathoning all of Doctor Who, yes I mean all of it, from William Hartnell's first story, An Unearthly Child, all the way up eventually to the new series past Ncuti Gatwa and beyond him, hopefully. But as of right now, I am soon going to be delving into the warm embrace of the 7th Doctor's era with his first story, The Time in the Rani. Before we cover that era of Doctor Who, we've got to cover the 6th Doctor's era, which I have now finished binging since I'm on the 7th Doctor's now. I thought it was high time that we now talk about Colin Baker's era as the Doctor and go through his stories. I will say, going through and binging the 6th Doctor's era, it's given me a new appreciation for this era and the tone that the show was going for at this time. Now, I would say that we have a lot to get through in this video, but I'd be fucking lying. There are only 11 stories, or even 8 stories if you're Doctor Who magazine classing Trial of the Time Lord as one full story for some reason. But yeah, nonetheless, let's just get into this and talk about the 6th Doctor's era of Doctor Who. We're going to be covering every serial of his run in chronological order, which means we have the misfortune of having to tackle the Twin Dillema first. Strangely enough, we're kicking off the 6th Doctor's era at the end of season 21, with the Twin Dillema being the final serial of season 21 for some reason. I don't know whose decision that was, but it was a daft one. The Twin Dillema is not a good introduction to Colin Baker's Doctor, not by a long shot. He's portrayed as frankly unlikable in this, and yes, you could blame that on the post-regeneration effects that he goes through in this story, but he's extremely unpleasant towards Perry, and not to mention the infamous strangling scene that happens in this one, which rubbed everyone the wrong way when watching this for the first time, and I'm one of those people. But just to play devil's advocate for a second, as a counterpoint to that, for the Doctor's role in this story, I kind of like the dynamic of the Doctor not being this reliable hero that he was as the 5th Doctor with Peter Davidson. I like that we don't know if we can trust him at this point. I just think that the strangling scene just goes way too far, because it also doesn't sell the companion Doctor dynamic that they're trying to sell for the beginning of a new era. One of the many pitfalls that hold this story back. Another thing that holds the story back is the twins themselves are fucking insufferable. Lang works as a supporting character, I will admit. Mester is not threatening in the slightest, by the way. Asmail's death was a fun moment, but as I say, on a whole, this episode doesn't set off Colin Baker on the right foot whatsoever. For all the reasons I stated, with unlikable characters, a frankly unlikable Doctor at this stage, and the fact that it's the closing story of the previous season of the Doctor that we'd known up to that point, it really shoots this new era in the foot immediately. I don't know whose decision this was to do it this way. But now we do finally move into season 22. A markedly better season, Attack of the Cybermen. This is the first episode of season 22 where we see the episode's runtime reach 45 minutes apiece. A bold move, but I'll be honest, a welcomed one in some ways. It's a shake-up of the formula. I'll just say, stepping back from the 6th Doctor era analysis for a second, I've been marathoning the classic series for the last year and a bit, right? And I will admit, the 25-minute an episode format is grading after a while. So to see the episode runtime formula shaken up here with season 22, it was a breath of fresh air on my part. So maybe that increased my enjoyment of Attack of the Cybermen tenfold. Whatever the case may be, something works about it for me. I'm going to stick it like in A tier, potentially, maybe even... No, you know what, I'll give it S tier. Let's go through why I liked it. Fun stuff happening with the TARDIS and the chameleon circuit in this one. I love the stuff with the Cybermen in the sewers. Absolutely excellent. The structure of the episode was quite cool, with part 1, the first 45 minutes that is, being entirely set on like Earth, and then part 2 feeling quite different, with that being most of the stuff on Telos, right? And though I do prefer the stuff set on Earth in part 1. I think it's the tighter side of the story. I like the stuff of the Cryons in the story, even if they don't really contribute much to the main plot. I feel like their design is quite unnerving, and I really enjoy the sequence that we see them in. And I will say, Attack of the Cybermen does quite successfully call back to previous stories of the show, like with Totter's Lane and with Tomb of the Cybermen. And this is one of the most action-packed and violent episodes of the Cybermen, or dare I say Doctor Who as a whole. It's action-packed, it's thrilling, quite graphic, to be honest, because we see like blood on screen in the back half of the story when you know, we get that scrap on the Cyberman base. Overall, like I say, I think this story actually deserves an S tier. I'll be honest, I'm not even just being generous here. I thought it was an extremely strong watch on this time round, and I really enjoyed the grittiness of it, I think. But now we move on from one really awesome, gritty Doctor Who story to another, Vengeance on Varos, which I'm just going to cut to the chase. It's another S tier. It's, I think, the most popular Sixth Doctor story. Sorry, I'm eating my own hair. From what I hear on the grapevine, it is like the favourite Sixth Doctor story, probably. I think it's the one that everyone agrees on is quite good, which means it's got quite a good reputation backing it up. But where does it stand for me personally? I think the reality TV aspect of the story is really fun. I feel they could have leaned more into it, though, potentially. I feel like what they did do was pretty fun, though. I will say that the stuff with Arak and Etta being the visual representation of the audience watching the events of the story unfold was a fun angle to play into. Again, I just feel they could have done more with that concept of the story a bit more, potentially. Made it a bit more meta, maybe. But it was a fun extra element that they added, a fun extra ingredient. The villain Syl is brought to life really well and portrayed perfectly as well. Quillam is a fine villain as well. I think he does his job to raise the stakes of the story where they need to be raised. The crowning achievement of this story is Varos itself. So it's so well fleshed out and realised, just amazing world building. I adore the meta feeling of the cliffhanger after part 1, and also, like, people have an issue with season 22 as a whole and how graphic and gritty it is. I just enjoy the new direction the show is going in this season. I think it really works to, like I say, change up the formula, make it feel a bit more fresh. So as such, I personally don't see the flack that the acid bath scene gets. A lot of people online have issue with how the Doctor coaxes them into the bath, but if you see the actual scrap go down, the Doctor has very little agency in that scrap itself. He mostly stands by and watches the two guards throw themselves in the acid bath. Excuse me, really. So if you feel differently, that's also fine, but for me, it doesn't really ruin the story for me. I think that Vengeance on Varos is an extremely strong watch. Probably stronger than Attack of the Cybermen, though I did enjoy my watch on Attack of the Cybermen a bit more on this viewing, but I would probably say that Vengeance on Varos is the more airtight script of the two if I were to split hairs on which I prefer. But yeah, Vengeance on Varos, excellent story. Now we move on to The Mark of the Rani. Cool backdrop with this one, with Old English Village during like the rebellion stuff. Great location shooting as well. We get the debut of the Rani here as well. But I really like the Rani as a character. I think that they were introduced extremely well and portrayed perfectly too. I like that the Rani isn't just another like evil Time Lord. I love that she's more calculated, more scientific, more unemotive and cold, right? I think that's what I love most about her character. She's just more unique, which heavily contrasts the Master, especially considering the Master himself, Anthony Ainley's Master, is in this story and how pantomime his Master is. It's a really great, you know, contrasting view between how the Rani plays things in the story to the Master, how they both approach the Doctor and how they're compared. I feel that the Rani is cooler in this story by far. She's way more level-headed. I will say, though, luckily, the Master, thank God, is not window dressing in this. He's not just here for show, but he is heavily shadowed by the Rani. I think the Rani is the coolest thing about the story, as well as, like I say, the set and the location shooting is quite sick. The Rani's TARDIS set is really cool too. I think this story was fun. It's a bit more style over substance for me personally, though. I think it doesn't really hold a candle to the tonality and grittiness of like these two Estes stories with Vengeance on Varos and Attack. But I did like it. I think I'll put it like B or something. I think it's like the definition of mid probably, for the 6th Doctor era, at least for me personally. If you like it, awesome, let me know why in the comments. But now we move into the 2 Doctors. So finding the space station Chimera attacked is a fun, inciting incident. I love the 2nd Doctor and Jamie anyway, so seeing them back in this story was a treat of its own. I also like Jamie being added to like the 6th Doctor and Perry TARDIS team. It was a fun little shake-up to that formula. I also love the bit where the 6th Doctor and the 2nd Doctor like meet up finally in the story. It's so damn fun. The location filming in Spain was awesome, by the way. Lots of cool location shooting in this season as a whole, actually. The Sontarans don't really look their best in this one, sure, but Stike is well played, and his death is a bit over the top, but very cool and graphic. So Dastari is a decent character. Shockeye is brilliantly portrayed. Love Shockeye. This story is dark but also fun at the same time. I think it's a fun balance. I think there's a lot to love here. Again, it isn't perfect, but I think what they do with it is decent. It's quite strong, so I'll leave it in A tier. I think I'm happy with that. Okay, Timelash. So this episode was clearly written for the 25-minute runtime rather than the 45-minute runtime. Holy shit. So the Borat, no, not the Borat that you're thinking of, by the way, is honestly the worst written and performed villain, with admittedly the coolest looking costume, but the less said about the Bandrels, the better. With the exception of Tekka, most of the extended cast are dull and forgettable in this. The script honestly has scant little of value, proven by Perry not having anything to do besides being captured. Also, it's hard to watch with the Doctor and Perry arguing so much in this one. I know that those two argue a bit in previous ones, but their squabbling has never been more irritating than in this one. This story is frankly grating on me. I lost a few hairs with this one. I think this story took a few years off my life going through it. I'm gonna have to put it in D tier for wasting my goddamn time. It's a waste of space. I don't like Timelash whatsoever. If you couldn't tell, it's awful, and I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. But now we have Revelation of the Daleks. A fucking great story in comparison to Timelash, may I just say. This is a pretty damn strong Dalek story. It always slipped under the radar growing up. I did have the DVD from a young age, but I always kind of overlooked it. Until now. You know what? I really like the snowy scenery of Necros. And Davros's lab is so cool. Same with like the catacombs. I think the set design of this story, it really works. I think they really did try with this one. Terry Malloy as Davros is great in this. Love him. I feel the Doctor and Perry don't ironically contribute very much to the story in this one. They do kind of feel like passive onlookers for most of it. But a little positive to that is it means that the supporting cast get a lot to do, and a lot of them kind of compelling. People also like find the DJ quite annoying, but I think he kind of serves his purpose. I like how layered he is, how when he's recording his radio show, he's very twatty and very grating and very irritating. When that stops, his character kind of drops, and I kind of like that. It's a fun little edge to his characterization. The Necros Daleks, I'll admit, do look really sick, but much like the Doctor and Perry, they don't really do much. They're kind of just table dressing. I will say, a absolutely frightening scene is the glass Dalek thing, by the way. With Arthur being inside, being asked to be put out of his misery. Such a horrific moment, actually. But then the bit at the end is quite cool. If not a bit of a rehash, Daleks shooting each other. It's happened to death now. But the Necros Daleks fighting the Skaro Daleks was a cool scene. Yeah, I'll give this story its points. I think it is quite good. Would I put it in S tier? It feels like a bit too kind to do so, but I could squeak it in A. I'll stick it top of A. I think A is deserving. Okay, now we move into Trial of a Time Lord. So, some people do view this Trial of a Time Lord series, so series 23, as like one big serial, like a Daleks Master Plan thing. I would argue, at least the way I approach it is I approach these as separate serials, but I can see both angles of how to view this story, but for me, we're just going to treat these as standalone adventures, with obviously the tightly conjoined serialized formula of Trial of a Time Lord, much like with Key to Time. But again, the 6th Doctor doesn't have enough stories as it is. It's unfair to capsize it anymore, right? So, The Mysterious Planet. So I think that the series starts quite strong. I think that the Time Lord courtroom stuff is quite fun. It kind of loses its charm towards the end of series 23, but for here it's kind of cool for this first one. The entire trial story throughout, it feels a bit meta at times, but like I say, it is a fun through thread for this full season. I think it wouldn't have worked as well if we went in not knowing as much as the Doctor himself, but as it stands, I like that this first story is framed that the Doctor doesn't know any more about the events that the trial is going to uncover than we do. We're going to be watching these moments unfold in the same fashion that the Doctor is, and I think that is the thing that connected me to what they were trying to tell in this particular story, and the 3 extra ones afterwards, right? So, Ravolox visually isn't much to look at, but the world building around it is cool enough. The reveal around it being Earth is also cool. I don't mind that twist. It's done to death nowadays, but I appreciate it for what it is. Diver and Glitz are good, particularly Savalon Glitz. The Valiard, by the way, I just mentioned him here, is a brilliant villain, and yeah, just a lot of shocks along the way in this season. I think he's portrayed excellently and framed really well. Most of the season is framed quite well with all the mystery surrounding what the Doctor can't remember and like where's Perry and stuff like that, right? I think the Mysterious Planet is all right. I think it's a shame that we lose the 45-minute runtime thing that season 22 was going for, but what it tries to do, it kind of succeeds at. I can't really fault this story much. I don't know, I'll put it like low B tier. I think that's fine. Yeah, you go. Mindwarp. So, cool little plot point with the arms dealers on Thoros Beta. The return of Syl was very much welcomed, by the way. Great villain. Crozio is a well thought out villain, and I also fucking love Brian Blessed as always. I also like in this story the aspect of like the trial storyline affecting the events of like the story itself and the Doctor's like memory being altered. I like the idea of like these events being messed with by the Matrix, right? I think it's a fun angle that we don't actually know the truth of what happens in this story necessarily, or not the true events even. I think that's a fun angle to go on, and I wish they leaned in on this side of the trial aspect more throughout. Also, I'll say again, I love that the fate of Perry is up in the air. It really adds like to the tension and the stakes. Really fun moment with the torture scene as well in this one. I think it's another strong one. I think it does the same sort of things as Mysterious Planet. And yeah, you know what? For that reason, I'll stick it alongside it, because why not? It's quite a compelling story. I think I can see why people like to consider Trial as a full serial rather than split up serials. But again, we're going to rank them separately here for the purposes of this tier list. Terror of the Vervoids. I like that the setup for this is very meat and potatoes Doctor Who, with like the distress call and the space liner and the crew of the ship slowly being picked off one by these mysterious invaders, right? Great setup for a story. You really got me hooked so far with this one. Love a good Base Under Siege story with a little murder mystery in here as well. The supporting characters work here as well. There is like different layers and motivations going on. The Vervoids are cool as well. The design is a bit weird though. I don't really know if I like the design of them, but they service the plot well. A welcomed first trip on the TARDIS for Mel, by the way. It is a shame that we skip the intro of Mel. But I think if we were to like kind of shoehorn in the introduction of Melanie into this story, it would have just shamrocked the pace of this story a little bit too much. We wouldn't have been able to get into the meat and potatoes of the story as quickly if we added that in as well. Overall, not an awful one, but I will say, unlike the first two Trial of a Time Lord stories, I feel like the Trial storyline more hurts this story than aids it. I would have enjoyed this one more if it maybe wasn't connected to the Trial of a Time Lord stuff, potentially. So for that reason, I think it just kind of has to sit in C tier, because it doesn't succeed as much as its predecessors. But now we move into the final story of the 6th Doctor era and the final of the Trial of a Time Lord arc, The Ultimate Foe. This episode is interesting, as you kind of have to watch this one after seeing the other 3 serials. You can't jump into it on its own. I mean, you can't really do it with the other 3 previous to it as well, but this final one especially, because it's mostly entirely focused on being the conclusion to the Trial arc. Because the previous 3 episodes with Mindwarp, Terror of the Vervoids and Mysterious Planet, the way that it was framed for the Trial story is like the Doctor and everyone at the Trial showing like evidence and like seeing like the mystery of like events being muddled and who the Valeyard is and where the fuck is Perry and all that shit. But then this story is kind of the climax to this season. So you kind of, like I say, do need the context clues of the previous 3 to kind of know what the fuck is going on, which leaves the ultimate foe on the back foot, because it can't really stand on its own, right? I think the trial of a Time Lord, I also think the trial story does get a bit muddled toward the end. I think there were like 3 or 4 writing credits attached to this final episode, which might mean the conclusion isn't exactly what was originally planned and set up to. I like the Fantasy Factory. I don't like the ending for Perry here, by the way. I much prefer her more memorable ending in Mindwarp, and that's a hill that I'm willing to die on. But I feel like more people share that sentiment with me than I'm letting on. Valeyard's motivations change halfway through as well. I can't really get behind this one very much. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to put this one in like D tier, but I'd much take it over Twin Dillema and Timelash. I think it shits gold compared to those. Well, you mean, and since it does, I think I'll stick to my guns. D tier. In it goes. Mic drop. But there you go. That has been me going over the Colin Baker Doctor Who era in its entirety, which is not a lot to go over, but we have nonetheless now. That's me ranking in this tier list, as you can see. Would you rank them differently? Probably. Tell me how wrong I am in the comments. Let's have an argument or a calm discussion. It's up to you. But that will indeed do it for this one. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thanks for sticking with me till the end. Let me know your thoughts on the 6th Doctor era if you fancy. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Thank you very much for watching this video. And I'll catch you in the next one, I guess. Goodbye.